more.
Hey travelers, do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call, because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.
855-325-1820. 855-325-1820. That's 855-325-1820. Have you ever met a single person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice for you. This service is strictly limited to individuals that owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes. And if you qualify, we can guarantee that you won't be writing a big fat check to the IRS, or our services cost you nothing. The first 100 people that call today will get a free tax consultation worth $500. Stop worrying about your IRS problem. We can help you, we promise. Call the tax doctor right now. I mean right now, to learn more. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. That's 800-240-4587.
Hello. I am Sonia B.
And I'm Iguaran.
Welcome to A Common Thread. We're not going to change it up today.
The wins, the losses, and the curveballs of life.
There we go. We threw a curveball last week. I said the opposite one. And now I'm not going to do that today. So, well, welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to our show today. We are so happy to be here on a Monday. And so, like we always start off, we try to check in with each other. So how are you today, Eva?
Doing well. I got to go out with my daughter because today she didn't have school. So we decided to shop.
Oh, okay.
My feet are sore.
Oh.
It's just,
there we go.
You kind of need a mic.
kind of. I was just talking freely. Sorry, y'all, if you couldn't hear me. But you probably heard me just very low.
Yeah.
We like it. We like to keep it spontaneous on the show. So we'd like to keep you on your feet. So your daughter was off today.
Yeah. So we went shopping. Today kids don't even know what the mall is. So we went on a field trip to the mall.
I know. That's awesome.
Just so everybody knows, back in the day,
we used to hang out at the mall.
Yeah.
It was a cool thing to do. I said that to my son the other day, and he looked at me like, we don't do that, right? We don't do that now. I'm like, I know that. Y'all weird.
Actually, the mall was packed. So
was it really?
Maybe because it's President's Day. I do not know.
Okay.
But nobody knew what to do. So we were at the mall, went to hit up Dillard's, 65% off sale. Whoop, whoop.
Whoa, woohoo.
Yeah, Audrey was like, okay, can we go now? I'm like, no, we got to look at every single shoe here. So shoes kind of had me distracted. And now my feet are sore from walking the mall. But glad to be here. Feeling very positive.
You got all your steps in today.
Mm-hmm. And more.
And more.
How was your day?
My day, busy. Working. And just working. Thankfully, not bad for a Monday. Like we always say that, right? Not bad for a Monday. So I think if Tuesday was Monday, we'd say not bad for a Tuesday. So Not bad for a Monday. Well, anyway, today we're going to talk about, it's going to be a part 1 and part 2. And we thought part 1 too because I don't think we could do it all in one, cuz I think sometimes we try to pack it all in and it's just too much information. But the title really the title is Who is My Neighbor, but really it's Hearts of Stone or Hearts of Flesh. And that sounds like a really, I don't even know what kind of title that sounds like to y'all, but it may sound like, what does that mean? Hearts of flesh and hearts of stone. Well, our pastor, one of our pastors at our church, did a sermon, not this past weekend, the weekend before, and it touched my heart really. Um, and he talked about kind of like what's going on as far as the political kind of tension stuff that's going on in the world on and his biggest focus was which I liked because he said I'm not taking sides here. This is
Yeah,
not about
we're not talking about red,
blue, not red,
blue.
no blue, no donkeys, no elephants,
Right.
just you know the spirit of the heart and the condition of the heart right now of people. And so
Cuz we're getting sucked in
we are getting sucked in.
to different arguments every single day and different subjects, and so this is it was a very good sermon just to kind of like he let everybody know that it's not what it's about. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the Bible.
Yeah, and it made me think about myself. Like I try to stay away from that stuff on social media. I have my opinions about things, but I don't want my post or I mean, my Facebook or Instagram or whatever to be about that. But there have been times that I guess, felt strongly about something and I shared it. So I think we can kind of, like the pastor mentioned in the sermon, like this is pendulum swing, right? You go from like being very vocal and then you're like, now I
Very
don't,
very quiet.
then very quiet. You go
Mhm.
silent, right? How do we find that middle ground? And we'll probably touch more on that next week. But how do you find that middle ground of um, kind of speaking truth, speaking life and truth about what's happening, but not necessarily taking sides, right?
Mhm.
So, um, he actually talked about the scripture that he went from was from Luke 10:25 to 37. And some of you may be familiar with that, maybe others not so familiar, but we're here to all learn. And so we're gonna read from it because I think it's important to kind of get the I'm gonna read it through and then we'll kind of talk about it a little bit. But we're gonna focus more about the biblical aspect and how things back then, whatever's happening now, still it happened back then too. It just looks different, right, Eva?
Mhm.
Like back then they didn't have social media, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have, news immediately, right, when something happens. But, like there's that saying that times change, people don't. So the heart of the person, the condition of the heart of a person is the same. So,
Do you think they had propaganda?
oh yeah, they did. It just wasn't advertised in the sense of it was more like I think hidden or it was more like indirect. Um, or if it was direct, not everybody heard about it right away,
A
right?
drawing on the side of a mud hut,
Kind of like a graffiti thing, right? On the side of
maybe.
a thing, somebody may have was angry or upset about something and they kind of that's how they spoke their truth, right? Or their feelings about that situation. But we're gonna go to Luke 10:25 to 37. And the focus really is more about not that we're not focusing on the part of the Good Samaritan story or the parable, but kind of like focusing on maybe we will stop verse by verse, kind of just to talk about it, because I think if we read it straight through, we might like lose lose the feel of it. So
Do you
it's
want me to start on verse 25?
yeah, you could start. Let's read that one first.
It said, "And behold, a lawyer stood up and put him to the test, saying, 'Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?'"
So right there, That's an interesting. So first of all, like lawyer, when we think of lawyer, we think of lawyer like of someone who fight in a courtroom, right? Uh, fights justice, you know, defense lawyer, all those kinds of things, right? But this is not that kind of lawyer. This is like a lawyer of the law. So it would be um like a teacher or professor that teaches at a seminary in Old Testament law, right? So he was an expert in that. And then he says, "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" So I thought it was interesting that he asked that question because first of all, he was trying to trick Jesus. It was a trap. He knew the answer, I think. But maybe not. Maybe he asked that question and he was like, "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" So he's already got it all wrong anyway. Because how, back then or even now, we feel like we have to work for our salvation, or whatever faith tradition you're from. There's always like, I feel like we have to work to get to heaven or to get to the next level or whatever you want to call it. And he asked that question, and Jesus having pity on him, meaning like compassion, he says, "Well," he asks a question, "What is written in the law?" He replied, "How do you read it?" So now he's basically telling him, "You're the expert. You're a
You tell
lawyer.
me what it
You
says.
tell me what it says." Right? And so then he says, he answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself."
And right there, we have to stop and think, well, what is a neighbor?
Well, before we even get to that part, so when he said that, basically what he was doing was dividing we're all familiar with the 10 commandments, right?
Mhm.
Because although even if you're not a believer, there's a lot of laws that have been created regarding from the like do not kill, right? If you kill, you go to jail, or there's some type of punishment for it, right? If you steal, there's a punishment for it. And then there's don't commit adultery. Well, you don't do that because that hurts other people, right? Um, obey your parents, and then do not lie, and do not covet or desire someone else's wife, husband, property, whatever, right? And so basically, the 10 commandments are divided into two things. The first four is love your God with all your strength, with all your soul, with all your might. And the last six is love your neighbor as yourself. So, meaning whatever you don't want done to you, don't do it to someone else. So, if you don't want something stolen from you, don't steal. If you don't want adultery being committed to you, you don't like that feeling, right? Then don't do it to someone else and hurt them, right? And so okay, so now we can go to the next thing. So the next thing was or is verse 28.
And he said to him, "You have answered correctly. Do this and you will live." But wanting to justify himself, he said to Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?"
You know, it made when I read that because the pastor talked about that as well, and it made me think of also the time where Peter, when Jesus was talking about forgiveness, and he said, Peter's like, "Well, how many times should we forgive?" So we're always trying to like find a loophole in how like well Jesus he says well it says 7 times 7, which is 49, right? See, I graduated from college, I know that, right? That Jesus says no, 70 times 7, which is 490, right? Which, okay, 490, that's a number, right? But really, if you think about it, how insane would it be if we actually tried to keep track of look, one person? That's just one person. We're not talking about multiple people that have wronged you. We're gonna keep track of 490 times that we're gonna tally it on the wall or something, right? Because where are we gonna do it? On our phones now? You're not who's gonna do that? Nobody's gonna do that. But
Mhm.
we're always trying to find a loophole, like, how many times should I forgive someone for doing something to me, right? And so this lawyer guy was asking the same question, "Well, who's my neighbor?" Well, I gotta justify because I gotta know who these people are. Because if I can find a way out, not everybody's my neighbor, right? So then he tells the story. That's how Jesus answered it. Do you wanna read this part? Or you want me to read it?
What verse? 30.
Oh, yeah, starting at 30, maybe read to, like, 32 or 33.
Jesus replied and said, A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he encountered robbers, and they stripped him and beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. And by coincidence, a priest was going down on the road, and when he saw him, he passed by to the other side. Likewise, a Levite also, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side.
Okay, so let's stop right there. First, this road, the Jerusalem to Jericho, it was a road that was it was a common road, a very common used road, but it was also a road that lots of people were robbed on, right? And so this person was traveling and he got robbed and beaten. But it's interesting to me that two religious people, a Levite and a priest, crossed on the other side and didn't help him. And first of all, let's want to put things into perspective. When Jesus told this was very controversial. And because in the next verses, he's using a Samaritan, which we'll read it and then we'll kind of talk about what a Samaritan, like the things that were going on between Samaritans and who Samaritans were. This is but a Samaritan as he traveled came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring in oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. So let's talk about the Samaritan, because I think like that kind of ties into like today, right? Meaning when I mean in our modern time, 21st century, 2026. And so a Samaritan, the reason why it was so controversial was because Samaritans were not fully Jewish. So they were actually half Jewish, half Assyrian. And basically the Jewish people at that time called them half breeds. And well, the Samaritans weren't so nice either to the Jewish people either. So we're not putting it all on the Jewish people that they were against the Good Samaritans. But I think that Jesus, a lot of the time, his anger was always towards like the religious people, the ones that knew, quote unquote, knew better. And I think he was just trying to really speak a message to the folks listening. And it was very controversial because he's using the Samaritan as a good person. This person, y'all, the religious people in the story, the priest and the Levite, y'all overlooked this man that was bleeding and dying for whatever reason. Either, I don't know, you didn't want to get your cloak dirty, you were in a rush going to the synagogue, whatever the reason, but you overlooked him and decided that whatever you were going to do or whatever the reason was more important than saving that person's life. Because he was like on his way to being dead if nobody stopped. So Jesus uses the Samaritan person to kind of say, well, he's the good Samaritan, or I'm assuming it was a he. I mean, the story says maybe it was a he, but regardless, the Samaritan is the hero, quote unquote, in the story. So, you have any 2 cents or 2 denarii, like it says in here?
Well, I'm just thinking about like what that looks like today. And basically, we have, I mean, most people would say, oh, well, I'm not racist. I know a lot of people who would say that, like, I'm not racist. But how about having a bias or just having judgmental thoughts towards someone of a different color or look? We say color, but ethnicity, whatever you want to say, whoever's not like me. But then when you think about it, I actually, Sonia, actually remember watching an interesting experiment where they had people come in and like do their blood. They drew their blood to see like what they were, because it would spit out percentages. And some people were just like, oh, very racist.
Mm.
And then to find out that they actually have, I would say, like, that race in their blood, they didn't even know it. Like, you're hating on people, but you are that person. Now we're so mixed up. I know I'm very mixed up.
Mm.
I guess they would call it Heinz 57. I don't know. I don't know if they say that with just dogs. Like, you're a mixed breed.
Mm.
How many of us are full? You know what I mean? Like, I'm full this or I'm full that.
Right. We're not.
But anyway, they did this show where, people came together, they did their blood type or whatever and showed them that, oh, I have 20% Irish, I have 30% African, and they were just like in shock because they didn't know
Mm.
where actually they came from and how many percentages. So I just think back then maybe there were these different religious groups, but it's the same today in modern time. We think we don't have prejudices towards others, or we think that we're loving to all.
Mm. But we're not. I have a note here. It says it's important to remember that the world Jesus lived in had racial, cultural, and political tensions just like ours. People were divided by ancestry, religion, religious tradition, political loyalties, and cultural identity. And the truth is that Jesus did not take sides, because even the quote unquote conservatives of the day and quote unquote liberals of that day both hated him because he didn't take sides. So, as Christians, if Jesus did not take sides, we should not take sides. Now, it doesn't mean you cannot have an opinion about things, but there's a difference between like having a friendly opinion, like, hey, this is my opinion about this, but not trying to like, not mudslinging or, what's the word I'm trying to use? Like, trying to, uh, taking someone's character, and what's that character assassination? I don't, that's not the word I want to use, but
Yeah,
basically, kind of
slander.
slandering someone's character because of it. I mean, that's where we have come. Like, either side does that, right? It's not like one does it and the other one doesn't. Both sides do it because we're human, regardless of
And
what.
then one side is like, they're stupid. Obviously, I have the information. The information I have is better than the information you have.
Yeah. So it's just really sad that we
Have you fact checked that, Sonia?
have I fact check it? No, I haven't fact check it.
This is what a lot of people make. It's like a superiority. I fact checked that, so
Yeah. Well, interestingly about the story though, like we always like assume, I think, well, not always. Let me take that back. I think many times, at least I in the past, I assumed, now I know, I always thought that I was the good Samaritan. Oh, I'm the good person in there. I'm the one who saves the good people or saves somebody who's
I'm the one
bruised.
that would stop.
I'm the one who would stop because that's just
Mhm.
the kind of heart I have.
Mhm.
But actually, Jesus is the good Samaritan, and we are the one bleeding and dying on the road. So when we see ourselves like that,
Smashed and beat up.
smashed and beat up, then we start having more compassion over other people, because that can be anybody,
Mhm.
right? And so, and in spite of the bleeding, and who knows what the person looked like after they got beat up and robbed. And who knows what kind of life that person had. I mean, we don't know. The story doesn't tell us that they were a good person or not. We don't know that.
Mhm.
But in spite of that, the Good Samaritan didn't ask, well, I don't know, are you a good person? Who knows? Maybe the person that was beat up was even Jewish.
I don't want to get that infection. I don't want to get too close. What if he has something?
Or I don't want to be unclean. Like back then, it was a big
Right.
thing if you touched someone who wasn't like of your religion or faith or whatever. Well, I don't want to be made unclean if I touch them. And so we don't know as far as the person's concerned, but the Good Samaritan didn't ask. or didn't look at that person and say, "Oh, they're Jewish." No, they just need someone to help them right now. Otherwise, they're gonna die if I don't intervene. And then he takes them to this. Well, first of all, he cleans them with wine and oil, and I thought, I mean, I haven't studied this part. This was just me making an assumption, but those are that are theologians out there. You can correct me. And I'll ask my pastors when I get to my church if this is correct. But I just made this assumption. So there's wine and oil there, and I thought wine is acidic, right? It's got the acidic, so I'm thinking that would kind of kill germs, infection, and then the oil would soothe it, like lotion, kind of like a lotion or some type of ointment. And that's what I thought of it when I saw that. I thought, oh, well, he just used what he had on him, and that's what people used back then. And then he took him to an inn. Now, this part I do know because I've heard sermons on this part. The inn is actually the church. And so he takes this wounded person to this inn and he says to the innkeeper, um, gave the innkeeper 2 denarii. He says, look after him, which tells me that we need to look after our brother. You know, everybody's like, oh, I'm not my brother's keeper. That's not my problem. That's what we've come to that these days. Like we see something happening, and I get it. We're scared. We see somebody getting robbed or we see something. Well, we have our phones on us. Even if we don't feel safe to actually, if we don't have you don't have a weapon or anything, there's nothing you really can do for that person. But you have your phone, you can call. You can call the police and say there's an emergency, someone is being robbed or whatever the case may be. There's something you can do to help. Like back at this point, they didn't have phones. This person just stopped and helped. Now, could they have risked their life? Maybe that was maybe the reason why the Levite and the priest didn't stop. Maybe they were afraid that, well, I don't know if those robbers are still around. They can beat me up too now, right? And we don't know what they were carrying on them, if they had any like, things that were precious in the sense of money or coins or jewelry or whatever. Anyway, the point is,
He made it his responsibility to say, take care of them, and I'll be back to take care of the bill.
right. So that means that the Good Samaritan, Jesus, brings to us people that are wounded by this world. And now he's saying, take care of them. They are the greatest possession, or the greatest, not possession, well, possession, I guess, but treasure is the word. This is the greatest treasure. Why? Because I died for them. I risked my whole life for eternity for them. And so,
And it doesn't sound like, it sounds like this kind of happened in an organic kind of way. Like you're kind of going down the road and you have to stop for somebody,
mhm.
because otherwise, we would want to pick and choose who's easier to minister to, pick and choose who we're going to help.
Right.
Just the convenience. This wasn't convenient.
No, it wasn't.
And maybe he even decided he was going down this road to do something, extraordinary or out of his way.
Oh, there's our music. Well, we're going to take a break right now, folks. Come back and join us in about 2 or 3 minutes. See you then.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no-obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. Call right now. 800-597-9323.
Welcome back. I'm Sonia V.
I'm Eva Iguaran.
To a common thread.
The wins, the losses, and the curveballs in life.
Well, I'm going to read some commercials. NTX Radio proudly serves all of North Texas and can be heard all over the world on the TuneIn Radio Network and on the NTX Radio app available on Android and Apple CarPlay, or just ask Alexa to play NTX Radio. Check out our lineup and more at ntxradio.com. We thank our valued sponsors in helping us amplify the voices of North Texas communities and businesses. So, protect your family with a will or trust. Connect with Todd Hurd and Associates, attorneys at law, for all your civil law needs at texasattorneylaw.com. Processing credit cards? Join the Swipe Nation today and save on processing fees at swipenationusa.com, locally owned and operated, and will beat any rates. Got sleeves? Dress your arms and more at thetiffy.com for women's accessories and more, made in the USA. And it's time to take your business to the next level. Hosting a radio show and podcast is a powerful way to connect with a wider audience, build brand awareness, and drive sales. Let's discuss your business goals and how a custom show can help you achieve them. Email Tiffany at t.hurd@ntxradio.com to get amplified. All right. So we were talking about remind me where we left off.
Well, he had basically told him to go ahead and take care of this gentleman who had been wounded, and when he returned, he would take care of the financial burden. But please take care of this man that I found. So he went above and beyond. He went further. He could have just dropped him off at the door with a little note, but he didn't. He stuck around. He stayed there, made sure he had a good, safe place. And then he even went above and beyond to say, and when I return, I'm going to make it right. I'm going to pay for all the finances of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were just saying, not really who, but yeah. Who does that? Who does something like that today? Not many of us would go to the length of, I guess, going out of our way to minister to somebody like that.
You know, I remember this was probably about 20 years ago. It was myself, my late husband, and two friends, a couple, married couple, husband, wife. And we went out to dinner or something, and we were walking to our car back after we ate. And there was a man on the floor, drunk, and on the floor. Like he must have, because he was so drunk, he fell over. And my husband and my friend's husband, they stopped and we helped him. And I forgot exactly what happened, but we I don't know how we I don't know if we because back then, I think 20 years ago, these cell phones weren't really I mean, you had a cell phone, but not everybody had one, and if you did, it was like a Nokia kind of phone, one of those old phones, flip phones kinda thing, and but we took care of him. I don't remember how the details of it, but I remember we stopped and made sure he was safe because, we didn't know if, like, somebody coulda came by later and tried to rob him or hurt him, and we didn't know what he was going through, so and at that point, we weren't asking questions, we weren't asking, "What do you believe?" or, what are your religious beliefs? What are your cultural, beliefs? What are your political beliefs?" And we didn't ask any of those questions, we just stopped. And so, but then after Jesus says all this, he asks the lawyer, "Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." And Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." Mercy. What is mercy? When we think of the word mercy, what do we think of? Like, if we want to look up the definition, I guess we could. The literal definition of mercy. I mean, I know what it means. I found here it says compassion or forgiveness towards someone whom it within one power to punish or harm. Used uh that's not that one. The next one is not the definition we're looking for, but compassion or forgiveness, right? Um
Compassion.
like there's another one here says especially of a journey or mission performed out of a desire to relieve suffering motivated by compassion. So that's the one. Um how many of us are moved with compassion? Because when we think of the word compassion, we think of it as a feeling. I feel compassion towards that person. But compassion it should move us to want to do something for someone.
Well, a lot of times I think we want to choose people that we're more alike to help. Maybe that would be the easy route, but like our podcast, A Common Thread, what commonalities do we have with every human? You know, whether it's a mother, whether it's a father. I like whenever, you hear, okay, this person was not only a mother, this person was a sister, this person was a friend to someone, or just the opposite. This person was a father, a son, a friend. There's so many things we are to other people, and that's what makes us human. It's what makes us common,
Mhm.
have different things that are in common, so we can find something to show love and show acceptance and show that compassion. And the story is a story of love and compassion, and it's a language that as humans we all speak.
Mhm.
So just being able to see that, what is that song? We all bleed red.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a song.
I think that's a song.
We all bleed red. So yeah, I mean, I have a note here I made regarding the common thread because this is what the title of the show is. Common thread for all of humanity. I have to write things down sometimes, some of my thoughts, because otherwise I'll forget what I wanted to like the point I wanted to make across. But this is when we step back and look at this parable, a single thread ties every person together. Every human being knows what it is to be wounded. Every one of us, no matter our background, our beliefs, our age, or our story, has been hurt, overlooked, misunderstood, afraid, or in need of help. We have all been the traveler on the road at some point in our lives. And because we share that experience, Jesus' story becomes universal. It speaks to every heart, it crosses every boundary. The parable reminds us that we all need grace, we all need compassion, we all need someone to stop for us. That point right there, we all need someone to stop for us. Man, sometimes I'm in such a rush to go to places that I'm so hyper focused on where I'm going. I'm like, do I notice if there was a need? And sometimes I'll see, like, I'll be at a light and, not many people carry cash right now, use our debit cards, but I do have every so often I'll have cash on me. And if I stop at a corner, like at a light, and I see like someone like asking for money, it's hard for me not to give them because I don't know what they're going to do with that money and it's not my business. All I know is that my heart is moved at that moment and my prayer is that they use it for food or to benefit them in that sense. And if they go and use it for other things that are not good for them, I can't that's between them and God. But I am moved at that moment and I give and I trust that they are because I look at them and I'm thinking like, well, they look pretty sincere, but of course somebody can give that appearance and not be. But you know, um at that moment though I notice because I'm at a light, so I'm forced to be stopped there and I'm forced not to move. And sometimes there's a few cars ahead of me, maybe 6, 7 cars, and maybe I don't make it to the next light and I still have to wait. And so how many of us are moved with compassion or how many of us stop for someone and we hope that someone would do that for us if we were the one on the road asking for money because we just lost our job and we have no means or maybe some of these people don't have family or maybe they're estranged from their family, um, whatever the reason, and now they find themselves in a situation where they're on the street. I can't even imagine what that's like to be on the street and have to try to find the safest place possible to sleep so that you don't get robbed or beaten or raped or whatever.
Well, the sun's going down. You see the sun starting to go down, and you're like, I need to find a place.
Mhm.
And sometimes, I know there on Lancaster, it is first come, first serve. So if you don't make it to the shelter by a certain time, then you're camping out, like on the street somewhere, some street corner. You've got to find your shelter, your food for that night. And
Hmm.
so it is very difficult. I've never been in that situation, but just to have compassion on people, like you said, whenever we stop and, we're not going to be able to read their heart or their intentions, but just to know that if that was you, what would your needs be? And we can only imagine we all have endless needs. If they're just trying to get enough money to stay somewhere, if they're just trying to get enough money to get to the next town, or if they're just trying to get enough money for the next meal.
Right.
So,
Yeah. But interestingly enough, we all need grace, we all need compassion, we all need someone to stop for us, and Jesus does. When we see ourselves as the wounded traveler, we begin to see others differently. We recognize our shared humanity. I think like for me, I just think about like I know this is like kind of morbid, but I'm gonna just say because I work in hospice, so I think about this stuff a lot. When you're on your deathbed, at least if when I'm on my deathbed, the last thing I'm thinking about is how many times was I right? How many times did I make the right point to somebody? How many times did I make somebody feel bad on social media? Sound how crazy that sounds? What I want at the end of my life is I want them to see Jesus in me. I want God's love and compassion to be seen in me. And so, and when you're on your deathbed, you have a lot of time, especially if like it doesn't go fast, right? Like if you have months, you're kind of just contemplating and thinking. And I've spoken to a lot of patients that, well, I'm scared or I'm this or whatever the feeling is, they they start revealing what their fears are, what their feelings are. And they're not saying, "Oh, Sonia, I wish I was right more." I've never heard one patient say that to me ever. And so, like, I don't know. That I'm very passionate about, and I think we spend so much time trying to make,
Our
our
points.
points about stuff that we forget what's really important.
We get sucked into these arguments that in the end of the day, we don't really know. We're trying to choose correctly our words, but then it just ends up ruining friendships.
Yeah, it does.
And I think a point to be made is, going to social media, thinking about that. Instead of being so quick to reply or to jump in every argument, just to sit back and be silent for a moment. Because if we jump into everything, maybe it's just like, talking to our kids, disciplining our kids. If we do it in the heat of the moment, or just having a conversation with your significant other, if you jump into it right away without taking a 10-second break just to breathe and slow to speak, we all might have things to say, but when we jump on it right then and there, we're just like hot and we think we know, and we're just ready to smack somebody when we just need to breathe and pray about it, choose our words wisely. And maybe today we're not going to get in an argument with anybody, or we're not going to choose a side.
Right.
Maybe you could just, can we choose just Jesus? Can we just choose Jesus?
Well, that's saying, what would Jesus do? I think that's really a real thing. I think if we asked ourselves that question before we responded to someone, or before we said something that we might regret, I think if we think about it, what would Jesus do at this moment? Maybe we wouldn't say anything at that moment, or maybe we would change what we would say, or ask God, please help me, because what I want to say is this, but I know I shouldn't say that. So what should I say, or should I say anything? And so at that moment, God will give you the answer. I feel that many of us, and I'll put myself in there because I've done it, or I still do it, is we listen to respond, not listen to understand. And a lot of the issue is that, again, it goes back to wanting to be right. And I have to get my point in because I have to have you see it my way. Why can't you? Well, I don't know. Why can't they? Or why can't I see someone's point? Because I think my point's more important. I don't know. Or I feel like, how can you live your life like that? Can't you see that living your life like that is wrong? Or can't you see that your political views are wrong? They should align this way because you feel you're this way, so they should align this way. And if they don't, then you're wrong, and I want to make you see that you're wrong. I think the best way for me to show God's character is through the way we treat other people. I mean, not that we can't, and of course with our words, I mean positive words, right? But I think we spend so much time trying to defend God with our words, with, you know, thinking that this is the way it should be, and then we miss the point. And then somebody might walk into church and we might say the wrong thing to them, and we don't know what the struggle was for them to get there, and then they come to church. Actually, this happened. It didn't happen to someone I know, but someone shared this with me yesterday. I guess it was this young man who came to our church and hasn't come in a while. And I guess I don't know what happened exactly. Something was said to him, and he had not come for months and months and months, maybe a year or longer. And whatever this something was that was said, he said, "I'm never coming back again."
Yeah, that happened recently to my brother. He walked into a church and two ladies cornered him.
Mm,
And when someone has, you know, issues already with different things in the church, it doesn't make it a very comfortable place to return. So
right.
my brother has a long beard. He sometimes, mostly always wears a leather jacket. So maybe he doesn't look like everyone else in the church. Looks like ZZ Top a little. He's been looking a little like ZZ Top. So if you don't like that look, he actually gets lots of compliments, but so that kind of messed it up. Just instead of having compassion, like, oh, this is what is church? A church is for the sick. The church is for the depressed person. The church is for those who are seeking a good word from the pastor, from someone. Not who are you? Why are you here? So very tragic because
Mm,
that's where I had been going with him for
mm.
weeks, and now he doesn't want to return. But anyway, yeah, we really have to learn how to show compassion. I was thinking about when he woke up. Does the Bible say was who was beat up, who was on the side of the road?
It doesn't say.
Because I'm just thinking when he woke up and he found if he, I don't think he was a Samaritan, right?
The one that was beaten up?
Right.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't
So
know, but I don't think they
so
were.
when he woke up, did he do a full mind shift about the person who took care of him in the place that he was in? Did he wake up and say, "Wow"?
I mean, look, now that you're saying that, it makes me think that who knows, maybe the Good Samaritan even knew that person. And who knows, maybe that person that was beat up and bruised on the road, maybe even wronged the Good Samaritan. They could have.
We don't know. There's so many what ifs, but it's just interesting to me to think, we judge people so harshly and we're not patient with them to wait and see. Maybe eventually, I mean, we don't like to think it, but maybe I will come on and join that other person in their thoughts one day. Maybe I'm going to do a full circle and come to their side. We don't know what side we're going to go. You know what I mean? When we haven't really been beat up like that, like this guy was physically beat up. But when the world has really done a number on you, our mind can really shift. I've had big shifts recently. So I think when I mean, wouldn't you say that about kind of like losing your
Oh
son,
my gosh,
losing
yes.
your husband? Do you feel like God has taken you to a different place in your mind that I'm just saying, like, I just can't imagine the shift that you have. So just I think the compassion that we have for others because you don't know until you've gone through something. So this beating, this half dead man, what views may have changed in his life after
Mm.
this experience?
Because we don't even know if he was actually awake during this experience, unless he was like really like totally out cold, or maybe he was slightly awake and was able to see the Good Samaritan. We don't know that much part, but either way, so if he saw him and then was probably wondering, probably couldn't really speak at that point because he was so beat up, just couldn't believe his eyes that this person maybe that he had wronged, or that maybe if he was Jewish. I can't believe the Samaritan is helping me.
You could see in those days, you could see by the way that they dressed. The dress
That's true.
was
Yeah,
different
they dress
between.
different. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, because the Levite dressed a certain way,
Mhm.
the priest dressed a certain way. If you were a Samaritan, you dressed a certain way. If you were just a common Jewish person, you dressed a certain way. Of course, there were accents and things like that, but this person wasn't speaking. But by their clothing, yes, you could tell that where they were from and who they
Or maybe
were.
even by their skin color, maybe they made assumptions.
Right. Yeah, because we don't know, like a Samaritan, let's say it was like half Assyrian, half Jewish, they were very tan, but we don't know like the one that was on the ground, who they were really. We don't know anything about the person on the ground. We just know that the Samaritan stopped and helped them. And regardless of if that person wronged them, maybe they knew them personally, or if that person was Jewish and they were Samaritan. Well, even if they didn't personally wrong me, I know that they've said things about my people. Should I even help them? And so we don't know anything about the person on the ground. All we know is that they were beaten up. And the Samaritan took the time to notice. And even with inconvenience having to go to Jerusalem or wherever they were going, they still stopped and helped us. And not even just stopped to see how they were doing, like put them on their donkey. Do you know how much, like, that's dead weight
Mm-hmm.
to put that person on your donkey? Now that means that you have to walk.
Well, and also, I think I've heard this, like, he's putting himself in danger by stopping because the
Yeah.
people who just beat up
Hmm.
that man could just be around the next bend.
Absolutely.
So by him stopping, he's risking himself getting beat up. And, how far away are these robbers who just beat this other guy up?
And I think that's one of the reasons why the priest and the Levite didn't stop. I mean, probably for maybe
This
that.
is a dangerous place. Am I going to stop right here?
Right. I'm risking my life. Am I going to risk my life for this person?
And then you have to turn your back to be able to put this dying man on your donkey. And now you're slowed up. You can't take off on a nice little jog.
No, because
with
he
your
has to walk.
donkey.
I think he has.
He probably, yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sure he had to walk.
So now we're going very slow
Absolutely.
through possibly a rugged, dangerous area. So yeah, there was a lot of risk. And just to, yeah, we definitely have to do more than just asking a person, "Hi, how are you?
How are you doing?
How are you doing?"
Exactly.
You can tell that question when somebody is really truly asking it
Or just saying hello.
or just saying hello.
Yeah. Yeah. How are you?
Mm-hmm.
So, well, we're getting close to the end here. So, we're gonna have a part 2. We're gonna touch more about now our times next week, and we might invite a guest to kind of share their thoughts on it too. But we're so glad that you spent time with us this evening, and yeah, we'll see you next week at 6 p.m. But like we always end our podcast, don't give up. Hold on to Jesus.
Keep looking up. And
See-
remember, the Samaritan loved across differences, and he loved with action.
Yes, amen to that. See y'all next week.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
Let's be honest, wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case, a $50 value, yours free. The Feather Chair. The world's lightest wheelchair is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered.